Ireland's rugged coastal beauty has always been a draw for tourists, with its emerald hills, towering cliffs, and captivating views of the Atlantic Ocean. Yet even these breathtaking landscapes couldn't prepare the residents of Mayo County for the unexpected arrival of a strange and mysterious object that bobbed toward the shore on a cold, foggy morning. In November of 2016, it was a solar-powered houseboat, thousands of kilometers from its origin in Canada. With no crew, no engine, and no explanation for how it had crossed one of the most dangerous stretches of ocean on Earth, the vessel's appearance sent shockwaves through the quiet coastal town, sparking intrigue, questions, and a sense of wonder that would take 3 years to fully unravel. But what was this strange craft, who had built it, and how had it ended up so far from where it began? It was an ordinary morning on the Irish coast. Locals had gathered near the shore when something unexpected caught their attention. Through the dense fog, a strange object appeared, bobbing slowly toward the shore. At first glance, it seemed almost otherworldly, but as it drew closer, it became clear that this was no alien craft. It was a houseboat, yet nothing like any vessel anyone had ever seen. Witnesses noticed that the craft was moving erratically, carried by the water as though it had no captain and no destination. It wasn't long before those watching realized the boat's course was heading directly for the coast. Curiosity turned to unease. What was this object, and why was it drifting alone in the middle of the ocean, so far from any known port? A local Coast Guard officer received the call to investigate. He made his way to the location of the mysterious craft, and as he approached, he could see through the mist that the object was large and strange, bobbing in the water as though it didn't belong there. In more than a decade on the water, he had pulled in fishing boats, dinghies, even the odd shipping container that had fallen overboard. But whatever this was, it certainly wasn't like any other vessel he or his crew had ever encountered. As they got closer, they were met with a sense of unease. The object looked more like a floating cabin than a boat, built from timber and covered in solar panels, with no traditional hull shape that resembled anything familiar. Sheets of polystyrene were wedged along the sides, likely there to help it stay afloat. The only certainty was that it had no visible means of propulsion and no crew on board. Bracing for the unexpected, the officer called out to anyone who might be aboard. His voice echoed across the foggy sea, but no answer came back. A heavy silence settled over the crew as they cautiously boarded the strange vessel, half expecting to find someone and half hoping they wouldn't. Was it abandoned? Had someone been lost at sea? Or was there more to the story than anyone could have guessed? As they searched deeper, their questions multiplied rather than diminished. The boat had a lived-in feel, with small remnants of daily life still scattered about. Then on one of the walls they found a message written in black permanent marker. It was brief, but its implications would shape the entire investigation. It read, "I, Rick Small, give this structure to a young person experiencing homelessness so they can have a better life. No rent, no mortgage, no hydro." With this message in hand, investigators began to piece together the puzzle. The vessel had drifted across the Atlantic from Canada, and it was clear this was no ordinary abandoned boat. It was part of a much larger story. The name on the wall, Rick Small, would lead them to a man whose life was every bit as unconventional as the boat he left behind. Rick Small was a man from Thunder Bay, Ontario, known for his unconventional ideas and his passion for alternative energy and self-sufficient living. Years earlier, he had ridden a solar-powered tricycle nearly 7,000 kilometers across Canada, determined to show that clean energy could carry a person further than anyone expected. That same restless imagination led him to his most ambitious project yet. Rick designed and built a wooden houseboat by hand, fitted with solar panels and waterproofed with tar, hoping to one day sail it from Newfoundland toward the Arctic to raise awareness about disappearing sea ice. It wasn't polished or professional. It was built from driftwood, patience, and belief, the kind of project only someone truly convinced of an idea would ever attempt. But when he couldn't secure the right motor for the journey, he made a decision that would eventually change a coastal town on the other side of the ocean. Rather than let the boat sit unused, he offered it up as a gift, hoping it might one day give a homeless young person a place to live, free of rent, free of a mortgage, free of bills. It was a small, quiet act, never meant to make headlines. The boat was left docked near St. Philip's, Newfoundland, for the summer. At some point, it slipped its moorings. Without a crew, without a motor, and without anyone at the helm, the current and the wind took over. Slowly, quietly, it began a journey no one had planned. For months, the little wooden houseboat drifted, unseen, across one of the roughest stretches of ocean on the planet. No radio calls, no sightings. No way of knowing whether it was still afloat or had long since broken apart beneath the waves. Then, on a foggy November morning in 2016, it appeared off the coast of County Mayo, roughly 3,000 kilometers from where it had disappeared. The Irish Coast Guard was stunned. A handmade wooden vessel, powered only by the sun, had somehow survived a transatlantic crossing with no one on board to steer it. It was, in the words of those who found it, one of the strangest things they had ever come across. But the man behind it, Rick Small, was nowhere to be found. Attempts to reach him went unanswered, and for 3 long years his identity remained the only clue to a mystery that captivated a small Irish community. Locals wondered whether he even knew what had become of his creation. Despite its strange and unconventional design, it was clear the boat had been built with care. It had a lived-in feel, and the message inside gave a glimpse into the character of the man who made it. Someone who cared deeply about the environment and about people who had nothing, and who was willing to try something extraordinary to help. The people of Mayo County were captivated. Rather than let the vessel rot on the beach, the local Coast Guard unit and community members restored it, eventually giving it a new home in a community sensory garden nearby. The mystery of its origin became local legend, drawing curious visitors eager to see the little boat that had crossed an ocean alone. Then, 3 years after it washed ashore, the mystery finally broke. A journalist tracked Rick Small to Vancouver, where he was living, very much alive, and happy to tell his side of the story. He said he never expected the boat to survive the crossing at all, let alone wash up fully intact on a beach thousands of kilometers away. He hadn't been sailing it, chasing it, or even thinking about it. He had simply let it go, and the ocean had carried his gift the rest of the way. For a community that had spent 3 years wondering whether the man behind the message was even alive, the answer brought a strange kind of relief, followed by a genuine sense of wonder that his small act of generosity had traveled so far and touched so many people, entirely on its own. Rick himself seemed almost amused by the whole thing. He hadn't set out to become a legend. He had simply built something with his own hands, made a promise to a stranger he would never meet, and let it go. Rick Small's solar-powered houseboat is more than a peculiar vessel that once washed ashore in Ireland. It's a story about what happens when generosity is set loose in the world and allowed to find its own way. It's a reminder that even the smallest, most unlikely gestures, a message scrawled in marker on a homemade boat, can travel further than anyone could have imagined and land exactly where they were. Always meant to. As for Rick Small, he returned to his quiet life of invention, still building, still dreaming up new ways to put the sun to work. But somewhere on the coast of County Mayo, the boat he gave away remains, cared for by people who never knew him, in a garden built for reflection and calm. It sits there today not as a curiosity, but as proof of something simple, that a gift given without conditions can still find the person it was meant for, even if the ocean has to carry it there first. Kindness, once released, has a way of finding the shore.